I was 275 pounds, pack-a-day smoker, newly clean and sober,
Really?
crushing like 12 Mountain Dews a day.
Yeah.
And, like I'm going to quit smoking, I'm going to lose weight. And like some people I was working with in recovery, counselors, therapists, that sort of stuff were like, well, slow down one thing at a time. And, I was having this, the freedom and the success in getting clean and sober was like, like finding CrossFit. It was like that intersection that made it something that was doable for me. Whereas I had been, I'd been to the gym when I was younger and stuff, but just it never took to this level.
Right. Was there a moment when you were still in with the drugs and alcohol that you decided, this is it, I got to stop? Hey guys, this episode was super inspiring. I have my friend Pete Brown on. Pete has gotten past struggles with drugs and alcohol. He went from being, not physically fit to being a CrossFit superstar. Listen to this episode. You'll get inspired and see that anything is possible. All right, here we are on another episode of The Mic Drop. I've got my friend Pete Brown here with us today. Pete's got a great story. He's been clean and sober 13 years. You're a CrossFit champion, right? And overall, super hardworking, inspiring guy that I think a lot of people can learn from. So welcome, Pete. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was saying to you before we just started, right, the point of this podcast is always, the tagline is connecting community to success, right? And our thought behind that from the beginning was, let's show other people what's possible for them too by having other people on that have done some pretty awesome things. So we want to learn all about you, right? So other people can listen to your journey and learn from it and see how they can kind of follow in Pete's footsteps.
Awesome.
What do you think?
I'm ready.
All right. So where'd you grow up, Pete?
I grew up 45 minutes from here in Peterborough, New Hampshire.
Okay. Out west?
West, yes.
Right?
About an hour.
Okay. And did you live there? Did you grow like your whole childhood you were out there?
Yep. Born, raised, all through school, and then about 21 moved to Nashua. Okay. So yeah, grew up there.
Why? Why'd you move out of Peterborough?
I was about to get married, and I was probably 6 months into getting in the Ironworkers local in Boston. The big dig was in probably the last few years, but Boston was still booming with that. I had an opportunity to get in doing that. And with my now ex-wife, getting married to her with her school and everything, Nashua seemed to be a good fit as far as putting me closer to Boston and her finishing up her nursing school. Yeah, just make more sense for you location-wise. Cool, right? So you end up in Nashua. And did you get into the Steel Workers Union at the time? I did. It was something that it happened pretty quickly, and knew someone who was in the business, and I had a little bit of experience that related, and a couple of phone calls and meetings, and they just, there was guys from all over the world working in Boston. They had so much work, and was working a carpentry job, and one day and the very next day I was driving to my first job as an iron worker. So and I did that for 9 years.
Oh, you were in the union work doing that for 9 years. What were you doing?
Started off doing reinforcing, tying rebar, and then the structural steel, walking up on the beams, and all of that was kind of like what I wanted to be doing. Yeah. So I started acquiring the tools and the connections to kind of get into that side of it. Yep. And so it's about half and half, 4.5 years on doing a lot of rebar work, and then got into getting up on the steel and So you were up there eating your lunch out of your lunchbox, sitting on the steel girders? Sitting on the steel girders, dead of winter, freezing, really hot in the summertime.
Yeah, I bet.
But I've always been in construction, so like exposed to the elements. So and born and raised in New England, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, we're used to it, right? And so when we were talking before, and now your main occupation is shipping and receiving, right? So you're driving, right? Or no?
It's after I was an iron worker, I wound up getting my CDL and driving tractor trailer for a few years, and was looking for a better fit for all my gym time.
Sure.
And
that's what I was going to ask you. What was the transition from the Iron Workers Union to doing what you're doing now?
Well, 2008 stock market crash happened.
Right.
And I was with the biggest steel erector in New England. And there was tons of work. And then the next day there was nothing.
There was no work.
Everybody. I was getting moved up to the next big project up the street. And then we were getting layoff checks. And through that, wound up getting my CDL, driving tractor trailer. I had been laid off for quite a while. And my wife's like, what are you going to do? And wound up getting my CDL. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. But having spent so much time laid off, spending money to get my license, I didn't have the heart to tell her. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to suck it up and just do it. And 9 years later, I was still doing it.
Yeah.
Didn't like it, and actually wound up getting fired.
Really?
Yeah. I got no. I used to fight with my boss all the time about getting out of work to go to the gym.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to stop you for a second, right?
Okay.
So this is a big part of the reason why we're sitting here talking, right? Because you are like a gym fanatic, right? You love it.
I love it.
Right. You love CrossFit. You love competing. You love training, right? When did that start? And because we'll get into all this, right? Because you had some challenges with alcohol and some other things earlier on in life, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when did you? Because those are two different sides of
opposite ends of the spectrum,
the world there, right? So, talk to me a little bit about where kind of when that started in your life, and when you made that transition to going from living an unhealthy lifestyle to probably the healthiest lifestyle that you could possibly live.
So, you mentioned it. So I'm just over 13 years clean and sober.
Awesome. Good for you.
47 years old, spent a majority of my life just abusing my body with drugs and alcohol. Very fun at first, had a lot of good times. And then at some point along the way, I crossed into that line of full-blown addiction and realized I couldn't stop. So
was that from a young age?
Teen years.
Okay.
Into like adulthood, which is, why I got divorced from the girl I had moved to Nashville with to marry.
Yep.
With addiction, everything's all in all the time. Right. So like when I found CrossFit, like that was, par for the course that I was going to go full blown with that. Like I did with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And
you see that, I see that a lot, you know what I mean? With people that I talk to, you know what I mean? That, had challenges with drugs and alcohol, and they get sober, and then they go full in on something else. Right.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing though that you can just, so that tells me, right? That's just something, that's a trait that you have inside of you.
Yeah. It's a way to take that, with drugs and alcohol, it's going to kill me, that level of like being all inness.
Yep.
And being able to use it for something positive with fitness.
Yeah.
And there are days I should probably take extra rest days and maybe do a little bit less at the gym.
Yep.
So it does have its faults, but it's, it was also the timing of it.
Right.
So had this been, fitness and healthy living lifestyle that I'm now it's such a big thing to me. It's always been available to me.
Yeah, but it wasn't really a thing, right? Earlier on.
I remember being a kid and kind of being I wouldn't maybe attracted to it, but like in awe of people that had the discipline for it. But it's just funny that it's such a huge part of my life today that, it's pretty, natural to say, oh, I wish I had started this younger. Because I started at 34.
Right.
I was 275 pounds, pack-a-day smoker, newly clean and sober.
Really?
Crushing like 12 Mountain Dews a day.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to lose weight. And like some people I was working with in recovery, counselors, therapists, that sort of stuff were like, well, slow down one thing at a time. And, I was having this, the freedom and the success in getting clean and sober was like, finding CrossFit. It was like that intersection that made it something that was doable for me. Whereas I had been, I'd been to the gym when I was younger and stuff, but just it never took to this level.
Right. Was there a moment when you were still in with the drugs and alcohol that you decided this is it, I got to stop? Was it like a time, an event, right? Because I want people out there that are listening to how healthy you've become and how great your life is to realize, shit, maybe I need to think about that moment.
No. So for me, it was kind of a long, drawn out process. And having met tons of people in recovery over the years, some people will have a DWI or a divorce is enough and just they draw a line in the sand and that's it. I had a lot of that stuff.
Did you?
And the it's different for everybody. The depths of despair that we go to as drug addicts and alcoholics, where you draw that line and decide to. And some people don't ever. Right. Jails, death, and institutions. That's where we typically wind up. So I consider myself one of the lucky ones. But it was because, again, as I mentioned before, a lot of years of having a lot of good times drinking and using drugs. Right. And it was. For my racing mind and anxiety, that was a solution for me, right? Is a little bit of a anesthesia.
Dull it.
And so that was actually my solution. And then it turned on me and I was addicted to it. So at the point where I realized that, now it's like, I can't survive without this stuff.
Sure.
Like physically having the shakes in the morning. So then it's like, well, this isn't possible. So that's when I finally reached out. Being a union iron worker, we had great insurance. They put me in a treatment center to get me sober, and then I was exposed to recovery. Put together some time, saw it was possible, but then relapsed for like 5 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask that if it was first go at it or
no. So I went into it pretty gung ho and knew I needed it, but it's just. It's such a subtle, like sneaky thing,
right.
and it certainly doesn't have to be part of someone's recovery story that you can just put it down, walk away from it, and
oh no.
But for me, it was like I like to tempt fate, and it was clean time, clean and sober for 6 months, 8 months, a year, and then back to it, and then just getting just so just sick of like doing that to myself, and the person that made me, and just the depths. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Right. The depths of despair of being that way is it was like I'm either going to die or I need to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that feeling. You know what I mean? But the feeling you have when you do get past that's got to be like, you must almost be in a way thankful for that, right? Because that made you who you are now, even though that was such a difficult time in your life.
First time I heard, and yeah, that's accurate, and I'm definitely grateful for it. But I remember the first time I heard someone who was further along in their recovery when I was new to it, saying that they were a grateful alcoholic, and like, that sounds kind of, it caught me off guard. But I think everybody has stuff that they struggle with in life, and for me, it was drugs and alcohol.
Absolutely,
and there's people with other addictions, food, sex addiction, gambling addictions. It just so happens there's a lot of consequences attached, most of them being legal, with drugs and alcohol that can force you into a position where you're kind of forced to do something. Right. And that was kind of the case for me.
Yeah.
So.
And now you said you kind of bounced back and forth there for about 5 years. When you finally did get clean and sober, right? Was that right? When you were talking about the times blending when fitness came into your life, was that time?
It was. So it was just a lot of things coming together at once. Meeting my now wife, who is an absolute saint. I had no business dating, but I mean, it's like the fact that our paths crossed and we wound up together was definitely the right thing. Like, you know, like in hindsight, would like someone trying to get clean and sober, would I ever recommend like, hey, go on a dating, you know, website and try and meet someone? Because that's what I did.
Right.
And I met her, but who she is as a person and the level of support and what, you know, her and her whole entire family kind of get me over that final hump when I had, you know, kind of gone back to the drugs and alcohol. So it was a combination of that, her coming into my life, and just a huge thing was the people I surrounded myself with.
Right.
And I think you talk about that a lot. I've heard you mention it. And anybody who's overcome anything, like you got to surround yourself with like-minded people who are further along in that journey.
Always.
In order for them to reach out and extend their hand and say, hey, come this way.
Well, let me help you. And
so it was, I'd already kind of started doing that with you know, people in recovery and then, and then meeting some people who were into CrossFit. And then that was just like the next step.
That's awesome. You know what I mean? And it's amazing, you know, how many people that I've talked to and how many people are in my life now from CrossFit. You know, I haven't been at, you know, working out at a CrossFit gym in, I don't know, 4 years now. But so many people in my life are from there. It's such a great community, and it's just such a great support system, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's because you're going through something so difficult when you're in there doing those workouts and getting through things that you almost bond with the people around you.
Absolutely.
You know? And for you at that time that was challenging for you, just, you know, how newly, you know, sober were you when you found CrossFit?
I was pretty far along.
Yeah.
Year and a half, maybe 3 years, I think. But I mean, I was 275 pounds.
I was going to say, had you dropped all the weight at that point?
A good portion of it.
Yeah.
So
what do you weigh? 175, 180? 190
like
maybe?
195.
Yeah.
You know,
all right. I have no idea.
But it's, you know, I was a pack-a-day smoker, 275 pounds, horrible diet, and I was 34 years old, and I just felt like crap all the time, tired, and started having some friends that were into CrossFit and had lost 50 pounds on my own just by changing diet. I was able to quit smoking, traded out the sodas for water, made small changes. And like when you first start, it's a pretty easy to get the ball rolling with weight loss. It's the further along you get that it becomes
the harder it is.
Harder it is, and you need to reach out for help. So it was kind of hitting that real roadblock at like 60 pounds of weight loss that
But hey, that's a lot of weight to lose.
Yeah.
That's pretty great in itself.
I felt so great on the inside from finally like walking away from the drugs and alcohol, putting together some serious clean time and like freeing myself of that the weight loss, like losing weight, quitting smoking, and starting CrossFit almost seemed easy. Because again,
there's a lot of things that you overcame.
Yeah, but I had been struggling with that for 5 years,
right?
Off and on, relapsing. Like, damn, here we go again. You know, so like finally being free of that, it was like the launching pad for like, you know, what else can we do?
Right.
Let's lose 100 pounds, quit smoking, and change my lifestyle, and walked into a CrossFit gym and. It wasn't actually like it didn't take right away because I actually got invited to go work out. So I consider myself in pretty good shape at this point. What was I basing that off of? Like where I was and where I was at this point.
Right, where you came from at 275 down to 210
so
or whatever.
Like I feel pretty fit.
Now, what were you doing at the time for like fitness?
Just started running, going to a regular gym, lifting weights, running on the treadmill, elliptical, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And part of who I am, which is pretty common with drug addicts and alcoholics, is a real aversion to asking for help. You know,
right?
I think most people can relate to that, but it seems to be heightened with addicts and alcoholics, especially. So, you know, I'm not gonna reach out to a trainer or read some books or ask a buddy. I'm just going to go in there and try and figure it out. So it makes for a longer, slower progress in the...
You would think, though, right? Sorry to interrupt you, but after you going through, the treatment and all the programs and things you went through, right? You'd think at that point, you'd say, hey, listen, shit, asking for help worked.
Yes.
But no? Right? Because that had probably the biggest change in your life, positive change at that point.
It definitely put me in a position to be better at it.
Right.
To answer your question. But yeah, in the as far as the fitness and weight loss, I knew I could make some progress on my own. So I was doing that. And then it was the kind of getting stuck at like 60 pounds of weight loss and wanting to keep going.
Yeah.
That I knew that it was going to take some more drastic change and that I was going to have to ask somebody for help. And at that point, we started, and you're familiar with CrossFit, right?
Yeah.
You start getting friends that are CrossFitters, you're probably going to wind up doing CrossFit at some point.
Yeah, so talk about it all the time.
Yeah. So my wife and I got invited. She was, so my wife was also overweight and a smoker. So like we kind of like, I'm a little bit further ahead. She shows an interest in what I'm doing, but she's a little more reluctant. And so she was still actually smoking, and it was a 100-degree hot summer day. And the friend of ours was a coach at the local gym, and he was like, yeah, come on in. So we didn't do any kind of like a foundations class or anything. We just jumped in full on a workout. She's out in the parking lot, like throwing up. Yeah. I have no idea. I've only like just lifted weights. I don't understand why there's a clock and we have to go so fast. And like, there's like 30 seconds in between lifts. And I'm like, why is there a clock? Why is it, and I'm trying to move weight as, it was one of the girls was like a competitor in the gym, right? She's a coach. So I'm like, well, she's a female. I need to put more weight on the bar. And my wife had just bought me a brand new Harley. Yeah, I was on vacation, so my plan was to like spend a majority of the vacation riding my motorcycle. This was like day 2 of my vacation. I was so destroyed.
So you were on vacation when you did this?
Yes. Well, we didn't go anywhere. We were just doing. But I went home. I went home.
Right.
First, I was trying to do laundry. I couldn't make it down the stairs, and I went outside. And I was trying to get on my motorcycle, and I had to like physically lift my leg over the bike. I was so beat up from that. So that was my first exposure to it. And it wasn't a year. It was a year later that I would actually like sign up and start going.
So you went one day.
Yeah.
And you were like, shit, I can't go back right now. But then after a while, you're like, this is that's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're familiar with CrossFit, like the kind of the on-ramp into it. I didn't do that. So I think if I had entered it the way you're supposed to. This was because I knew the guy, right? And I had been, I told him.
Which gym was this? Where were you at the time?
It was CrossFit Nashua.
Okay,
we were living in Nashua, and we had been attending a church, and the pastor was actually a coach at CrossFit Nashua, and he was the one who got us in there, and he's like, "Oh, you've been working out, you'll be fine." And so we're like, I didn't scale or try and modify anything. I just went in at it full blown, and it was, Yeah, as you can imagine.
I mean, CrossFit can be quite rough on the body if you're not into it and going. Yeah, it's like I remember my first time going in here, and at the time, I mean, I was probably weighing what I'm weighing now, but now I can do a lot more. This was my first time I went in there was 2013, and I went in, I signed up for a like a little on ramp thing, but it was only like 2 or 3 times that I went in and I did like a one-on-one with Chase, actually 2 or 3 times. And then I was like, went for it. Right. But I would fucking die. I remember I left after the first class I did, and I only made it to like the mall, and I had to pull over, and I threw up, and my head was like pounding. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I just can't do it. Right. But I went back, and then I kept going back. And the soreness and the pain would wear off, and then you just get building, getting stronger and stronger. It's awesome. It's funny. I was going with Juan today to meet with a real estate agent that we were going to talk to, and I said to him, like, I've wanted to go back to CrossFit for like 2 years, but I'm afraid.
That's why I don't stop.
Right? So you go there. So a year later, you go back, and is that when you're like, you know what, I'm in, and you went consistently?
Well, so I had another year of doing stuff on my own, going to the gym.
Yep.
Might have lost a little more weight, cleaned up the diet a little bit more, and a friend of mine who had been we had been working out together. Who's like, no, CrossFit's bad. You were never going to do it. And then all of a sudden he came to me one day. He's like, I signed up. And so then I'm like instantly I'm in. Right. So, and I did the on-ramp class, and I think there was probably 2 or 3 of them, and had the, they stressed the importance of kind of like, modifying and taking it easy at first. And so went at it a little bit, better approach than just jumping into the class like I had done the year prior.
Yeah, definitely necessary to go that route.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the first class I was in, there was only a handful of people, and they were all like uber fit.
Yeah,
and like the ego, right? You don't want to have the lightest barbell, and you want to try and keep up, no matter even if it kills you, and that's how you hurt yourself.
Right. It's super intimidating too. I remember when I first started in there, it's like even knowing what the hell they were talking about.
Yeah, it's like learning a language.
Right. There's like acronyms for everything, and everything's different. They're talking about HSPU and all this. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. You know what I mean? And like, if you don't have a friend that you're there, or I remember I'd be like asking like the mom that's in there, because I used to go at like 8:30 in the morning, like the mom's class, which I loved. I'd be like, hey, well, what's this? And, they'd tell me, but like all the moms were like in killer shape. And I'm like this fat guy dying, but once you get into it, you love it, And so then you get going. When did you get so serious about it? Because you're winning competitions now. You're like an animal.
I was instantly hooked. And having kind of like, again, like the resistance to asking for help in this process made it way harder than it needed to be. So, I would be at I was going to Workout World, and I was spending like 3 hours there, and I was getting so much done. And I don't even know where I came up with like the programming that I was doing. I kind of made it up, maybe like watch some other bigger guys in the gym and try and copy what they're doing. But it was, there was like a stress attached to that, having to like the figuring out part of it. And when I got to CrossFit, it was 1 hour long, and everything that you needed to do was already programmed for you, and you had a coach to tell you how to do, what to do, and how to do it, and how much to do. And that's what was like, all right, so that alleviates the whole like figuring out what I need to be doing. I just need to show up and execute instructions.
Yep.
And I liked that.
Yep.
Was taken back by the cost of it, and thought I was going to be in a room full of people that were like happy to be there doing it, but all complaining about how much it costs. And I was very surprised nobody mentioned it. Yeah. And it was like, because you and I are old enough to remember being kids with no cell phones, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now you take on a cell phone for the first time, and you have this new $150 a month bill in your life. Well, most people wouldn't at any point in their lives, no matter how tight the purse strings get rid of their cell phone.
Right, the cell phone isn't going anywhere.
And CrossFit's the same way. So it's now part of my life, and it's just comes out of the bank account.
It is what it is.
Yeah. But I got probably the first month, like you, didn't know what was going on. Yeah. And it was just like constantly asking people, what am I doing? But they did a lot of like inbox competitions, and like it just it sucked me right in.
Yeah.
And
from the very beginning, though, once you started going consistently,
so I started in probably August, and the CrossFit Open happens in February.
Yep.
So, what is that? 6 months.
Yep.
6 months into it, I was the fittest I had been in my entire life, and I'm 35 at this point. And watching the reaction of the coaches from like me coming in there and like, still shedding weight, and like where I had, just come from, that, I was 100 pounds heavier like a year or two ago, and like just watching them kind of like being like, wow, you were here and now you're this, and like writing down like times to do simple workouts and then like retesting them 3 months later and like cutting those times in half.
It's amazing how quickly it happens too.
It's addictive, and here I am, an addict. So 6 months into it, I do my first CrossFit Open, and I'm like, oh, wait a second. So this is a process to get to the CrossFit Games. Okay, like that's what I want to do. And they like, yeah, that's not really a realistic goal. And I'm like, well,
not yet, dude.
But I would have never said that out loud. And, but still to this day, that has always...
that you wanted to get to the CrossFit Games?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
And, so many people say that, and I've seen so many people go that route, but that has always been the end goal.
Yeah.
And even if I never get there, like the level of fitness and enjoyment I get out of this process, because I have that as a goal is, why I enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way of looking at it too, because it's all about the journey, right? In anything we do, right? If you hit it at the end, awesome. But if you're enjoying it along the way and you're giving it everything you have, that's what's fulfilling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what feels great, So what year was that? So that was, you said August. So what year was that?
That would have been August of 2013, I believe.
Okay. So August of 2013. And so then we're talking, it's funny, that was like right around when I started too. But I quit. You didn't. So February 14 was your first Open.
Yeah.
Right? Let's see if we can remember this. I think the first week was double unders and something else I couldn't do. And I remember because I got partnered up with one of the guy in there to judge. He couldn't do them either. And after like 5 minutes of like trying, I was like, this is so fucking frustrating. I'm like, I am going to learn these double unders. And like, that's what's great about CrossFit, right? Some of it's so challenging, but I bought myself my own jump rope because I didn't have one, right? I just used the ones at the gym. Bought myself my own jump rope. And every single night at home, I would go out on my back deck and I wouldn't stop until I would hit 50 in a row. So I would be out there. It would be cold because in my basement, the ceilings weren't tall enough in my old house. So I would have to be outside on the back deck and I would just go and go. And my wife would be looking at me in the window laughing. I'm like, I'm going to get this down. I'm not going through that terrible experience that I did. Do you remember that Open?
I don't remember. I remember being frustrated by double unders.
Yeah.
So I shared that experience.
And it was the first week, and I was like, shit, we're gonna have another whatever it was 4 or 5 weeks of
that's
like,
the beauty of CrossFit though, is like you have your days. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been doing this over 10 years now. You have your days where you walk out of the gym, it was all wheelhouse movements, and you have the best score on the board, and you feel like a stud. And the next day you get your ass handed to you, and like for me, it's a heavy barbell.
Yeah,
So
for me, it was pretty much everything. I enjoyed it, but like, man, was it tough? You know what I mean? There were so many movements in there that I'd be like, oh man, we got thrusters. That's going to wipe me out.
Yeah.
On the bike is like my arch nemesis. You love the bike though, right?
Yeah. I tend to like stuff that's long and just, lower weight, lot of reps, and just like turn off try and turn off the mind and just like keep grinding.
Yeah.
Except for the workout Chad, which is
which one's that?
Everybody just did it on.
I heard about that
on Veterans Day. So it's 1,000 box step ups to 20 inches wearing a 45-pound rucksack.
That's unbelievable.
And
1,000.
Yeah, 1,000. So I had done it before, and the coach is saying to me like, "This is your style of workout. It's just something that's like you just got to keep grinding.
Right.
You can't focus on one, two, or where you're at. You just got to keep plugging away, and that's typically the workouts that I'm strong at. But this one in particular, weighted box step ups, not my jam.
How long did that take you?
The first time I did it was kind of an impromptu where 20 minutes before doing it, I had a weight vest. I thought it was a 20-pound workout, and I found out it was 45. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it RX. So I'm like, I'm at home, right? So I got like a setup in the parking garage. So I just used a green band and a 25-pound plate over my vest. And
Yep.
I'm like, I did a couple to test it. I'm like, I'm good. I started the clock using it at home timer. I didn't realize it canceled out at 60 minutes. And I'm hanging the plate over my back and it's bouncing around.
So you're holding the plate the
Well,
whole
I had
time,
it a
too.
band through it, so
Right.
kind of holding the
But
like
still.
straps.
Yeah.
But it was bouncing and moving around, and like it was hot and humid, so it must have been summertime. And I just remember like sweat dripping down the side of the box and like just wanting to quit. And which, you know, I have my white chalk hash marks on the black gym flooring, and I got it done, but it broke me.
Yeah.
That workout broke me. So going into it this time, doing it a week ago, I had the 45-pound rucksack and figured I was gonna, you know, have a second attempt at it, and the same thing happened. The sets of 50 that I were doing were going good.
Yeah.
But the breaks that I was taking in between was what was killing me.
Yeah.
And like the low back's blowing up from wearing the weight. Usually happens when I do anything with a weight vest. But yeah,
50 is a lot.
yeah, and
Never mind 1,000.
yeah. I mean, I'm weighted box step ups in a workout. They kind of give me that oh shit feeling?
Yeah.
So like that, it's not a good movement for me.
Right. So what was the time?
Honestly, the same thing happened.
Oh, really?
I was doing it in class, and he had to start the next class, so he shut the clock off.
You're like, oh,
And
man.
he's telling me to start my phone timer. I don't have my glasses. I can't see.
Right.
And I'm telling him I can't see. It's like, and at this point, I just want to finish it. So
Yeah.
it was probably close to 90 minutes.
Yeah, hey, you finished it though, right?
Yeah.
That's what matters, right?
Yes, I mean, some of the times I see people's post is nuts, but
Yeah. What's the fastest that people would finish that in?
I saw a guy post 38, 37,
Wow.
which
You're like not slowing
I was
down.
looking at. I think I was around like 600 at that point, not even.
Wow.
So
That's unreal.
yeah, but but some people look at stuff that I enjoy doing, working out, and they're like,
Totally.
how do you do that? And I'm not a weighted box step up guy.
Right. And that's okay, though. That's what's kind of cool about CrossFit, or really any type of fitness, but especially CrossFit. There's so many different moves and variations and exercises and things you're doing that you find what you're good at. Right. And on those days, you love it. And you might have other days that are a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
You know? So talk to me a little bit about how you got to, I wrote it down because I want to make sure I got it right. The Masters Fitness Collective, right? Because that's the one you just did. That is like a CrossFit sanctioned competition, right?
Correct.
Right. And you won that, correct, in your age group?
I won my age group for the RX division. So there's RX and
Yep.
Elite.
Yep.
I did it 2 years ago, and it was a fairly new competition. So
Yep.
I wound up in the Elite division. And as the athlete pool grows from year to year, this year I did not qualify for Elite. I qualified for RX, which is one down,
Yep.
and I won that division.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You must be pretty proud of yourself for that.
Yeah, I put in a lot of work.
Right.
And
How did you qualify for that? What went into that?
just like the Open and all the other CrossFit competitions, they
Yep.
do an online qualifier, and you have to sign up $20 and register. And then when they release the workouts, I think it's pretty similar format with. Actually, I think they give all the workouts, and you have a few weeks to get them done. With
Well, that's pretty good.
And if you want to compete, you have to have video.
Yep.
So you got to film yourself, and some of the workouts I'm doing 2, 3, 4 times. If I feel good about one, I might only do it once.
Right.
But there's usually enough time to give each one. I mean, and like some people don't, but most people improve when they redo a workout.
Right.
So I'll usually plan on doing them a few times, and
Because then you know what you have to beat,
yeah.
right? You at least know what it was that you did the first time.
Just, like they're all movements we've done 1,000 times, but in configured a different way.
Yeah.
And like you kind of get to test drive it and then go back and kind of with a strategy and hit it again.
Yeah.
Most of the time I'm going to improve.
Yeah. So was this for a region or was this nationally?
It's actually, there's people from all over the world. One of the guys was from Argentina.
Right.
Who showed
And you
up
were
to-
number one in your age group.
Yes.
That's pretty incredible, Pete. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. That's
Yeah.
like super impressive.
It
Do you
felt
realize
good.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's like, and if people out there that don't know what CrossFit is and don't know how many people are competing in these types of things? Like, do you know roughly how many people started, to qualify in your age bracket?
I think there was. It's nothing like the CrossFit Open.
I bet it's an impressive number.
I think there was like 100.
All right, yeah, but those are the people that decided to do it because they thought they had a chance.
Yeah, so they had the top 20 go elite, and then the 20 through 40th place go RX.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. Had you done a lot of other competitions leading up to that one, or do you always usually kind of save it for, like for the open workouts? And I know you said you qualified for this before. Did you do local competitions? Do you do many of those?
Not so much. It's the large scale competitions like this. There's quite a few of them now. So from the open. And the reason I did this one is they changed the qualifications for quarterfinals in the Masters division with the CrossFit Open from the top 200 to top 10%.
Okay.
So one of my kind of benchmarks, on my competitive fitness journey was to be a top 200 guy.
Yeah.
And as I was getting close to that, I think I actually did hit top 200 that same year that they opened it up to top 10%.
Yep.
So in my age group, there was 15,000 guys. That means 1,500 get to compete in the quarterfinals.
Yep.
And I'm between 200 and 300th place. So I got to move on.
Yep.
And it was my first year doing the age group quarterfinals, and I have this new element of having to film everything and like how to make a link. I'm not a big technology guy.
Okay.
So like, you got to make a link and YouTube and upload it. And I'm like, I'm at the gym with no Wi-Fi, and I don't know how to do any of this.
Yeah.
And they had also changed. You had the first two workouts, you had 24 hours to get them both done.
Oh, no way.
And so I'm trying to redo these workouts. And you have to have the right setup and camera angles with the clock in view. So like there was only, because of the movements with handstand push-ups and everything, it had to be in a certain spot in the gym. So it was only kind of like 2 stations.
Right.
So I had like wait my turn for my redo. Plus I'm trying to like navigate all this technology and uploading stuff. And it was an extra added layer of stress.
Right.
So... and I just felt like I need to get better at that so I can kind of like not be so stressed out about it and just focusing on the workouts. So I had just finished the Open and this became available. I didn't really know what it was. I just saw some other Masters athletes were doing it. So I'm like, oh, this will be good practice for the whole video thing.
Yeah.
So that's actually why I did it. And
just to practice the tech side.
Yeah. And I'm doing, well, so they
just called Ed.
So they're, yeah, and I did have to ask for help for that. But, yeah, so there was a couple other people. They ran it in conjunction with the Pit Teen Throwdown. So the workouts were the same for the teens and the masters. And so there's some people in the gym doing it. And I'm just doing it for practice. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at the leaderboard, and I'm like, talking to my wife, like, hey, looks like I'm qualified for this thing. And then all of a sudden, I get the email invite, and she's like, you want to go? So off we went. And awesome. That was 2 years ago.
And where was that?
Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Cool.
And they had actually started that competition to give the Masters athletes who lost their season to COVID an event to do because Indiana had little or no COVID protocol.
Okay.
Bunch of guys that are all in that area, former games athlete, kind of put this thing together in a matter of a few months, and it just kind of grew from there.
How'd you do in that first one?
So I was in the elite division the first year.
Okay.
And I think I qualified 15th and finished 12th. So I moved forward.
That's good.
But the CJ Martin, who owns and runs CrossFit Invictus, does all the programming for it. And he does it to mimic the games, barbell loading, movements, skill level, all of it. So I chatted with him a little bit that first year, and he's like, what do you think of the program? And I'm like, that's, it's a goal of mine to get to the, the games and the Masters division. So I appreciate the test, but it was, it was definitely too advanced for me. And there was a 245-pound front squat from the ground, max reps in 45 seconds. And I'm like, I can't clean that. So,
right.
So, but there were some events I did really well at.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, and then you looked at that, right? You looked at that challenge and said, all right, well, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he came back and he won.
Yeah.
Right? That's the way you got to look at things, right? It's like, things may be difficult. You may not do it on your first try, but you don't give up, just like other things in your life.
Just
you know
like
what I mean?
things, yeah.
It's like we can learn so many things from past experiences and reapply them, And I've used this quote a couple times in our meetings, and it was actually from my 9-year-old son's football game a few months ago, right? They played Keene, and Keene destroyed them, right? And Keene was a really good team, right? So coaches are on the sidelines after the game, and what they say to the kids, what one of the coaches said to the kids is, "Hey, listen, guys, there's only 2 things that happen when you come and play a game, or you do anything in life: either win or you learn." Right? That's it. And I loved that from my 9-year-old's coach. You win or you learn, right? So you win, you might succeed, do exactly what you're trying to do, or if you didn't, you look at it, you learn from it, and you see how you can get better and move forward, right? And that's exactly what you did. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the whole attraction to CrossFit is that another common trait with alcoholics and addicts is we look for the easier, softer way.
Yep.
And anything in the first 3/4 of my life that involved a process, like, oh, well, this is you want to be successful in education, fitness, anything. You have to have someone to kind of teach you. You have to ask questions. There's a process to it. You might need to go to school and get a degree, whatever the
right.
process is. Like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm going to find a shortcut,
Yeah.
And that's just how I had kind of like wired my mind.
Yeah.
Is through like laziness and always trying to avoid the work to get to, never actually achieving anything. Like you think you're going to get there.
Yeah.
So having to succumb to the process of recovery and actually like putting like, my nose to the grindstone and doing a lot of work
Yep.
to bring about this like whole new second chance at life with recovery and being like clean and sober was like, wow, that's what, actually following a process and doing the work and the necessary steps involved to achieve the, to get the desired outcome, set me up to kind of delve into the exact opposite of trying to find the shortcut my entire life to
right.
like, all right, let's get down and dive into like, all right, I suck it with heavy barbell. So like now I'm doing on my second year of a 13-week strength cycle on the backside of this competition, which
yep.
I enjoy it, but I guess again, I'm not good at it, you
right.
know? So it's, but I enjoy the challenge of it.
Right.
From learning.
That's it. From learning and pushing yourself to
Yeah.
do more difficult things. One thing you mentioned quickly before that I want to point out, because I think it's amazing, is you were talking about when you were training for, I think, this competition 2 years ago, and you were saying you were in your parking garage, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was at CrossFit when you were still there, and there were times when I would see you in the gym, maybe in the morning or whenever, and then later on in the day, wherever else, you would post a video or something of you in your parking garage where you live with a bar set up doing some other workout, right? That's pretty amazing. The commitment and dedication that you have to your fitness, and the fact that, many people would say, well, with my setup where I live, right, I don't really have, a basement where I can have this gym. You set up a setup in the parking garage.
Yeah.
Right? So when you don't have the perfect setup for something, you don't have to make an excuse, right? You just find a way around it.
Yeah, kind of experiences like kind of mold us, right?
Yeah.
And working out at home I've always kind of like I don't have the right setup,
Yeah.
like you're talking about, and kind of just loathed the idea of working out at home, and have had gym setups in different places I've lived before, never really touched them. COVID happened. Now all of a sudden, like the like full blown, I trained 6-7 days a week, multiple times a day. At this point, that fitness is going to be taken away from me, and they're talking about closing gyms down,
Yeah.
and like nobody can I'll just order some gym equipment, and then you find out, well, everybody else is doing the same thing,
Couldn't get any.
it's not available.
Yeah.
Like sheer panic, right? So now to have my landlord says I can use the corner of the parking garage, and I get a little bit of equipment. So now all of a sudden it's like, wow, I'm lucky I get to do this, not I have to do this. So it's perspective.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
I think it was 2 or 3 months that the gym was closed down.
Yeah.
And whatever 6-7 days a week, I was down there, and a lot of times no music.
Yep.
My neighbors walking by looking at me like,
and you're just doing your thing.
Burpee box jumps, sweat pouring off, like lying on the floor afterward. Like if they walk in the parking garage right when I finished, I'm lying there gasping. But yeah, it that definitely changed that for me.
Yeah.
So it's a get to thing, not a have to.
Hey, that's everything in life, though, right? It's all in how you look at it. You know what I mean? We got to think about it. Many of us are very fortunate to get to do the things that we do every day, whether it's go to the gym, go to work. You know what I mean? Anything is how your mind is looking at it. I saw something recently that said the only difference between fear and excitement is your mindset. That's it. You know what I mean? You can be fearing one of these workouts, or fearing, me trying to go get some business from a potential real estate office or something, or look at that and be excited about it and say, listen, I've got this awesome opportunity to do this. I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And then everything shifts and everything changes. It's pretty amazing. So how are you tracking to get to the CrossFit Games? Think it's going to happen this year?
No. I still have some pretty big holes in my game.
Yeah.
But it's, having the opportunity to do competitions like this.
Yep.
And train with some people who are like-minded and get the kind of the realistic look at what it is I need to be doing as far as my training and volume and all of it. Just with each time I do something like Masters Fitness Collective, and seeing what the number one guy in the elite division's doing, and following him on social media and seeing what what he's doing, that sort of stuff. When you first look at something like that, might seem like very unobtainable and out of reach and unrealistic, and then as you move along, it's like you get a little bit closer and you add a little bit more and you do a little bit more, and it becomes not so far out of reach. Right. So they had swimming. I've never done swimming in a CrossFit competition. 2 years ago, I hired Maddie McDonald for a couple of sessions over here at Workout World.
Yeah.
Or the Workout Club.
Yeah.
To I couldn't even make it down the length of the pool. And this year, the swim event, I took third.
That's awesome.
So to go from not being able to make the length of the pool, and I've spent some serious amount of time with getting some help, hiring Maddie, and then lots of hours at the pool by myself, 1 to 2 days a week, 2 days a week leading up to the competition to get better and to take on something that's I've done, a lot of CrossFit, and in CrossFit Games and the elite competitions, you see a lot of swimming, but it's not something that's programmed in our daily programming.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, you can't. So having that thrown at me and then just a brand new movement for me in competition to finish third was that's
incredible.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, your commitment and dedication to things is something I've probably seen a couple other times in my life, honest to God. And I talk to a lot of people, because most people go about, even, I consider myself a pretty hard worker. I really dedicate myself to this company and the business and the people I work with, but not to that level, right? I respect it. I think that it's you're a great role model for pretty much anybody out there to watch and say, hey, shit, I can do anything. Look at all this awesome shit that Pete's doing just by committing to it. Right? You have a plan, you commit to it, you do one thing, then you want to grow and do the next. So I'm pretty confident that we'll see you at the CrossFit Games one of these days. I really am. You know what I mean?
If it takes me to the 65 plus division to get it done, that's
it's only 18 years. Pete.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Big deal. You can do that. So just to wrap up, right? What would you tell anybody, one, that is struggling with drugs and alcohol, right? What advice would you give them? And two, kind of next to that, what advice would you give somebody who wants to get into fitness that hasn't done it yet or is nervous or apprehensive or intimidated? What would you say to those people? Because you've overcome both those obstacles and been incredibly successful.
For the drug and alcohol piece, that it's possible. You got to ask for help, and it's not for people who need it. It's for people who want it. Right. The amount of people out there that are struggling with that stuff that like could and should get clean and sober, but don't want it bad enough, and it's something you really got to want, and you got to ask for help and surround yourself with people who have been through it.
Yep.
Is the important piece. Because you're not gonna figure that out on your own and like find your way out of that
right
on your own. So
ask for help.
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
And definitely you got to change everything. Environment, right. Friends,
right.
You know,
life.
Like, yeah, you don't go down to that level of depths and despair, and you're hanging out with successful, ambitious, like, you know, productive members of society, you know. So like pretty much everything's got to change, and it's very overwhelming.
Yeah.
But you know, and it's like that's why it's important to have support, help, friends, you know, and a recovery program to get you out of it. And if you fuck up and you use a drink again,
right.
That's okay.
Yep.
Go back to it.
Get back to it.
And for the fitness and weight loss, kind of the same thing, you know, like don't take the long, slow road like I did and try and like I spent a couple of years trying to figure it out on my own. And had I jumped into something like CrossFit sooner mm-hmm. or asked someone for help, hired a personal trainer, like, you know, it seems pretty like silly looking back on it that I wouldn't have gone to someone who was physically fit and knew what they were doing to get some advice, right? Rather than trying to figure it out on my own. But you know, for me and why I love CrossFit so much, and then you had mentioned it earlier, is the community piece of it.
That's great.
And you know, knowing that I don't hang out with most of the people that I do CrossFit with outside of the gym. But yet, like I'm excited to see them when I get there.
Right.
You know, like they're like you get there for your whatever time you work out for that class, and that's like the same group of people. And you also mentioned like the common the bond that's developed with a common suffering.
Yeah.
And there's something about that when you're doing a grueling workout, and they may not be people you want to hang out with outside of the gym, but there's definitely a bond there when you go through that together. And those are your classmates, and they're excited to see you. You're excited to see them, and it's like an hour of the day that you get to. For me, it's the only time as you know, someone that struggled with like anxiety and, mm-hmm. and all, you know, my entire life. That's like the one time a day where my mind's not racing. I'm not worried about what's happening tomorrow or what happened earlier in the day. Like I'm present, I'm there, and I'm having a good time.
It's because you have no choice but to be present, be there. Your mind, because I have a lot of the same things with that, like the anxiety and just always thoughts going on, right? And I remember when I would be in that gym for that hour, I'd be like, I just don't have room for that right now. You know what I mean? All I can do is focus on the next rep or running around this building or getting on the bike or breathing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's it, for anybody that struggles with anxiety or racing thoughts or it just has a lot going on in life. It's a great escape. You know, it really is.
It is. And it's healthy,
right?
You know, it separates. It's a good for me. I would still rather work out in the morning, but like how I do it now is I work for 8-9 hours and I go right to the gym. I might be there for an hour, I might be there for 3, but it's separates me from the work day.
Yep.
Puts me in a better mood, and it's become part of my like daily existence now.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Well, you're somebody that a lot of people should look up to for sure. Where are you on? Are you on social media? Are you active in any of that?
Yep.
So people can follow your journey to the CrossFit Games. Where can they find you if they want to watch you and see you make it?
Peter Brown on Facebook. What's my Instagram handle? Peter Brown 41, I believe.
Okay.
And that's it.
Love it. All right, Pete. This is awesome, buddy. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody follow Pete.